Oh. Hello there, Grandy here. Welcome to my wee post-commentary of a versus AI game I recently played with two guys, Guy in Grey and Void. Void is pretty new to the game, having played only around 100 hours of the game, while Guy in Grey used to play the originals quite a bit, coming back into it, and I consider myself a low to medium skill player. The aim here of the video is to analyse differences between the three of us, the development each of us makes during the game, point out some flaws, suggest some solutions, and generally give a decent things you should know guide to setting up shop in an Age of Empires 2 game. Getting right into it, we'll watch Void start as the Vietnamese. First thing to mention is the civ choice. Vietnamese are a reasonable archer civilization as their archers get increasing percentage bonus health every age. They enable the Imperial Skirmisher upgrade across your team for an even better cheap anti-archer unit, and you get the enemy town centres revealed on the map, all of which adds up to the Vietnamese being a great teammate to have. As we enter 1 minute and 18 seconds into the game, Void queues up his first villagers. Due to the lack of housing population, he is housed as soon as the first one pops out, and is then prevented from producing units. One of the most important early game goals for every player should be to minimise town centre idle time. It should always be busy. The solution is a very rapid and easy build order the moment the game begins. Select your town centre, queue up villagers. Select 2 villagers, build a house. Select the other villager, build another house with that one. If you're quick enough, by the time the villager pops out from the town centre, your house should just about be built. The next thing to note is Void's early mill and his scouting. The milling of berries should ideally be done when in or going towards feudal age. Newer players are often surprised by just how many food sources are available to a player early on, and even more surprised to know that gathering from berries is a lot slower than from a sheep. Berries require your villagers to walk to and from each bush, which can vary a lot depending on their unit pathing, and their natural gather rate is a lot lower too. I did a quick test, and given 2 villagers starting at the same time, a 125 food berry bush was brought down to 73 food, meaning 52 food gathered, in the same time that a shepherd cleaned up a full 100 food sheep while sitting under the town centre, making it basically half the speed. So your best course of action as the game starts, after setting your villagers to build houses, is to get your scout moving around the local area looking for nearby sheep, and then sending one underneath your town centre. However, we see that Void scouting is next to non-existent around his immediate area. As far as Void is concerned, he only has berries and 2 small patches of wood to use in the south, whereas the reality is completely different. If we look at Guy in Grey, his scouting is far superior, but he still opts for a mill instead of gathering from his sheep. Much later on, he does get around to it, but he spreads his villagers around various sheep, which is not the most efficient. When an animal dies, its food count gradually decays over time, regardless of whether you are gathering from it or not. So gathering from 2 at the same time doubles the food technically lost from the decay, so it's always best to focus on 1 sheep, which is what you'll see me doing. You'll notice that I use some of my acquired sheep to scout a little bit as well in the beginning. It's an optional extra to cover some more ground, and they're pathing I set up very quickly using waypoints. To set waypoints, you just select a unit, hold shift, right click as many times you want to place the waypoints, release shift, then right click a final time to set a final waypoint and set the unit on its way. I often do this super quickly with a couple of sheep, as well as with my scout whenever I get the chance. To access my scout, I put him in control group 1 using Ctrl+1, and then I can press 1 at any time to select the unit, and double press 1 to center it on screen, allowing me to easily input some waypoints for the surrounding area. You can also see the way I queue up my sheep on a nearby side, so I can easily have a sheep being gathered, a sheep waiting, and the rest out of the way. Anyhow, enough with the sheep micro, let's get back to Void. After panic placing some houses, blocking some farming space in the process, he gets some villagers going and goes to place a lumber camp. Remember earlier I mentioned walking time between berries and mill being a factor in gathering efficiency? Well, as far as resource tiles go, trees are the quickest to recede, so building your lumber camp right on the edge of the forest is best for medium-term efficiency. You'll actually want to build new lumber camps every 4 or so tiles of distance the villagers have to travel in order to maximize efficiency. The chosen placement here also makes stone collection awkward, so a far better placement would have been nestled into the patch over on the right hand side there. At this point, he gets 6 villagers onto food, which is kind of the golden number. 6 villagers on food is enough to consistently create villagers from one town centre, with a little left over. At 16 villagers total, and after a wait, he researches Loom and then goes to Advanced Feudal at 15 minutes and 13 seconds. If you compare this to what I was up to, I have 28 villagers, I've built 2 Feudal Age buildings, I'm advancing into Castle Age, and I'm building a barracks. After seeing how open an opponent's base was with my scout, I decided to go heavy into a night rush, and I built 2 forward stables on the middle island. A few minutes later, and I'm in their base for the night army. Compare that to Void at 19 minutes in, and he's still at 16 villagers. So it begs the question, what am I doing to be that far ahead? But before I show you my start, let's have a quick catch up with Guy and Grey and see what he's up to. I mentioned his sheep gathering practices earlier, but before this he only had 3 villagers on berries as his starting food production, which led to a bunch of town centre idle times he kept not having the 50 food needed to produce another villager. He had an imbalanced economy, resulting in a bunch of excess wood, but not enough food to advance. He does gather the 340 food from a boar however, so props on him for lowering that. At 19 minutes in, he's in Feudal with 26 villagers, he's got the 2 Feudal Age buildings he needs, and he's preparing to go to Castle Age. All in all, not a bad start, but with the idle time and the imbalance, he put himself just a little bit behind early on. Which leads us on to me. In this game, I loosely follow what is called a fast castle build order. It's a rough guide of villagers needed on resources at certain times in order to get to the Castle Age in a fast and efficient manner. It's a little risky to adopt, however, as it usually means not getting much military, at least in the Dark and Feudal Age. That aside, it is a brilliant starting place for new players, as it teaches you proper and efficient economy management. I'm just going to have it playing in the background, as there's actually a far better tool out there to learn it, which I'll get onto in a bit. You'll notice that I plan ahead so that I don't get housed, and I make full use of the 2 340 food boar available to me. I just hit it twice and walk it back to my TC. The berries become a long-term food drip instead of my main food source. I also scout all the time, trying to find my second boar while also seeing nearby resources such as this big patch of deer at the back. I then decide that the boar is so far away that I'd rather not risk a villager doing it, so instead I hit it twice in my scout and pay very close attention to it as I shuffle back to my town centre. It worked rather well, I think. You can also lure deer to your town centre with your scout by repeatedly scaring the deer towards the direction of your town centre, but I didn't do that in this game. My last 3 villagers will go on to gold. And that's pretty much it. 26 population, Loom, then on to Feudal Age we go, keeping roughly 15 villagers on food, 7 on wood, and 3 on gold. As soon as I get there, I build 2 Feudal Age buildings using the wood I have, and by this time I should be at or near the 800 food and 200 gold needed to get to Castle Age. You'll also notice that this is the time I begin scouting forwards, as I know I'll be transitioning into military soon, which is where the video picked up from earlier. While I'm rampaging through the AI's base, Void gets attacked. He has walls up, but his villager count and lack of reduction buildings means that the enemy will slowly get through. Ideally, while continually growing your economy, you also want to be creating military production buildings with spare wood, and produce units whenever you get the chance. And which units do you ask? Well, that's answered by what your civ is strong at, and your scouting. With good scouting of the opposing base, you get to see what kind of army your opponent has, or even what military production buildings he has. This, as well as knowing what civ they are, will indicate what kind of army they could send, to which you can build counter units and plan ahead. There's so much else that could be said about adapting your playstyle and many other strategies, but this video is already long enough. To practice a fast castle yourself, I cannot more heartily advise subscribing to Zero Empire's Fast Castle scenario on the workshop. It's super easy to install, appears in the in-game campaign menu, and you get to be guided through the build order by the omniscient Zero Empires and his guiding voice.
Hello, and welcome to this Dark Age scenario guide for a fast castle build order.
Regarding other workshop mods, I'd also very much recommend the Advanced Idle Pointer, the Transparent Trees mod, or the Small Trees mod, and the Map Grid from any terrain mod of your choice. Links for the ones I use will be in the description down below. And that's all for now. You can find me streaming on Twitch every now and again at twitch.tv/elgrandi, and I'll post VODs from that on the YouTube as well. See you guys another time.